Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And it is indeed a great pleasure to be speaking on the Treasury Laws Amendment, Cost of Living Tax Cuts Bill 2024. And it is a pleasure also to follow the previous member, the member for Sturt, who I must say his greatest contribution to this place so far has been sleeping through a vote a year ago, and that speech just then demonstrated he makes more sense when he keeps his mouth closed, because in the end his argument was fundamentally contradictory. If this was such a bad policy, why is he going to vote for it? That's the ultimate question he and every member of the opposition have to say. They can come in here and bleat and carp, but ultimately, if they think this is a bad policy, if they think this is the wrong move, vote against it and go to the election pledging rollback of it. Go to the election and pledge that you will be increasing taxes on low and middle income earners in this country, just like your deputy leader did before she even saw the policy. Because the truth is, Deputy Speaker, what we're talking about now is providing cost of living relief to every single Australian taxpayer. Every single Australian taxpayer gets a tax cut. Let me repeat that. Every single Australian taxpayer gets a tax cut, and we have been very clear with the Australian people that we are laser-like focused on providing cost of living relief to those who need it most, to low and middle income families in this country. And that's why I'm proud to speak on this bill and in favour of this bill. Because the truth is, Deputy Speaker, every taxpayer in Shortland, that's 67,000 people, will receive a tax cut from July 1 under Labor's better tax cuts announced by the Prime Minister and Treasurer. The average tax cut will be $1,551. Around 57,000 people, or 85% of taxpayers in my electorate, will receive a bigger tax cut than they would have under the plan the member for Cook, Scott Morrison, legislated 5 years ago. And across the Hunter and Central Coast, 428,000 taxpayers will now receive a tax cut, and 367,000 taxpayers will receive a bigger tax cut than they would have under the Morrison plan. And that's what those opposite need to work out. Are they for a bigger tax cut for 84% of Australians, or are they against it? Because ultimately that's their decision. They can't carp and whine, say it's a bad policy, but then come in here and vote for it. Deputy Speaker, we're delivering more help for working families and more help for Australians who are unfortunately under the pump from cost of living due to the remnants of the global pandemic, the war in Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East. So we're putting cash back into people's pockets when they need it most. Now tax cuts are about ensuring more workers in the Shortland electorate and every electorate can keep more of what they earn, because we know that will take pressure off people doing it tough. I'm incredibly proud that 5.8 million women, 90% of female taxpayers, will receive a bigger tax cut than under Morrison's plan, an average increase of $707. A nurse earning $76,000 will get a tax cut of $1,579. And I'm proud to say that there are 1,847 nurses living in Shortland. We have a Belmont hospital in our electorate, and we're very close to both Wyong and the John. So we have 200 nurses in Charlestown, 66 nurses in Belmont, 53 nurses in Lake Memorial, 49 nurses in Mount Hutton, 99 nurses in Warners Bay, all getting a tax cut. And if that nurse was earning $76,000, they'll get a tax cut of $1,579. A primary school teacher earning $93,000 will get a tax cut of $2,004. And I'm delighted to say there are 2,849 school teachers living in Shortland, 112 teachers in Cardiff, 101 teachers in Belmont, 77 teachers in Redhead, 155 teachers in Eleebana, 26 teachers in Chain Valley Bay, who get up every day and make a contribution teaching our kids, giving them the best possible start in life. And a primary school teacher on $93,000 a year will get a tax cut of $2,004, significantly more than what they would have received under the previous tax plan. A truckie earning $77,000 will get a tax cut of $1,604. And I'm proud to say there are 872 truckies in the Shortland electorate, 21 truck drivers in Windale, 41 in Cardiff, 50 in San Remo and 32 in Mount Hutton. And importantly, a police officer earning $110,000 will get a tax cut of $2,429. And there are 288 police officers in Shortland, 20 in Valentine, 32 in Warners Bay and 35 in Charlestown. A person earning $40,000, someone working part-time particularly, or someone working in the retail sector, say at a local Woolies that the Leader of the Opposition wants to put out of work, will get a tax cut of $654 compared to nothing under the Morrison plan. A person earning $100,000 will get a tax cut of $2,179, $804 more than they would have received under the Member for Cook's plan. A person earning $200,000 will still get a tax cut, which will be $4,500. And that's why this plan is the right plan for our times. This is why this plan is so important to support. This is a plan that provides cost of living relief to every single Australian taxpayer, but does it in a way where it provides the relief to low and middle income earners. And the government is responding to the pressure Australians are under here and now. That's the right and responsible thing to do, to deliver more relief for more workers without adding to inflationary pressure or burdening the budget. And under Labor's plan, Australians will get a tax cut and more Australians will get a bigger tax cut. Nurses, teachers and truckies, as I've highlighted, are some of those most likely to benefit, with more than 95% of those taxpayers getting a bigger tax cut. Our tax cuts are good for Middle Australia, good for women, good for helping with cost of living pressures, good for labour supply and good for the economy. Labor's tax cuts come on top of the billions of dollars in cost of living relief that we're rolling out, including energy bill relief, cheaper medicines, strengthening Medicare, higher income support payments and the biggest boost to rent assistance in 30 years. That is the importance of this plan. Now, Australians are under pressure right now, and it's crystal clear that every single taxpayer needs and deserves a meaningful tax cut. That didn't happen under the former government's plan. It will now. We've listened to our communities, and it became increasingly clear that this was the best way to ease some of the pressure they are under. Since the tax cuts were legislated by the Member for Cook 5 years ago, there has been a once-in-a-100-year pandemic, wars and global conflicts, a global inflation spike and higher interest rates. And those events have put people under greater cost of living pressure. And good government isn't about doing what's easy for yourself. It's about doing the right thing for the right reasons. It's about putting people ahead of politics. And I've had a few street stalls since we made the announcement. I had a shopping centre stall at Charlestown Square, which is the biggest shopping centre in my electorate, if not the whole region. And I've had street stalls at places like Cohiba and Whitebridge. And I've had people coming up to me saying, thank you for what you have announced. I've had people, for example, outside the Whitebridge Butcher telling me I don't get as big a tax cut as I would have under the Member for Cook's plan, but I completely support your policy because it's the right thing to do for Australia. And I heard similar sentiment in Charlestown. I heard similar sentiment at Cohiba and at a beautiful Australia Day breakfast at Chain Valley Bay. I heard very, very similar sentiment. And so it's really up to the opposition to really justify their position, their multiple positions on this matter, because we're acting in the national interest. But the Deputy Leader of the Opposition let the cat out of the bag when she said that the Liberals will, and I quote, absolutely unwind our tax cut for every taxpayer, which will mean higher taxes on Middle Australia under the Liberals. Unwinding our changes and clinging to the tax cuts they proposed from 5 years ago would have meant higher taxes for Middle Australia to fund even bigger tax cuts for people on the highest incomes. The Liberals' position on our tax cuts is incoherent, unintelligible and incomprehensible. And they didn't even ask a question in Parliament today about our plan to give every Australian a tax cut. They're trying to distract from their division on this and their contradictory position. So, Deputy Speaker, the choice is clear here. The choice is clear between a Labor government that is taking the hard but important decisions to put Australians first, to address urgent cost of living relief for all Australians, but principally targeted at lower middle-income earners. That is the policy that we've announced. That's the legislation we're debating today. That's the legislation that we're so proud. And really, the opposition has to make up their mind. If they think it's bad policy, vote against it. If their speakers come in and criticise us for 15 minutes, that's fine, but vote against the legislation. Vote against it, say they're in favour of putting up taxes on lower middle-income Australians in the country, because that's their choice. So, Deputy Speaker, I commend this bill to the House. I'm proud of it. I'm proud that it will give every single taxpayer in Shortland a tax cut. I'm proud that it will give 57,000 of the 67,000 taxpayers in Shortland an even bigger tax cut than they would have under the original plan, a tax cut on average of $1,551, around $800 more than what they would have received under the previous plan, and I commend the bill to the House.